Okay, well, in the last lesson, we learned about integers. That integers are a group of whole numbers and their opposites. So we learned about what negative numbers are. We learned about absolute value, which is just telling you how far an integer is away from 0. And today, even though the lesson is titled Adding and Subtracting Integers, we are only going to focus on adding integers. So let's look at our number line. We all know what the number line looks like. And if you are adding a positive number, you're going to go right on the number line. If you're adding a negative number, you move left on the number line. And the first number is where you start. So if we look at our first example here, 3 plus negative 4, we're going to start at the 3. And since we're adding a negative number, we are going to move to the left. And we're going to move 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The answer to 3 plus negative 4 would be negative 1. Our second example begins with a negative number. So that just means you start at the negative 2. We're adding a positive 5. So adding a positive number, you move right on the number line. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the answer to negative 2 plus 5 equals 3, a positive 3. You might notice that on both of our problems that we just did, we ended up with an answer that was either negative or positive, and it was based on which one was farther from 0. This number is farther from 0, and so our answer was negative. On this problem, the 5 was farther from 0, and it's positive. Our answer was positive. Now let's look at this last problem, negative 1 plus negative 3. So the first number is where we start at. So we go to negative 1 on our number line. We're adding a negative 3. Negatives go to the left. So we're going to move 3 to the left. 1, 2, 3. So our answer would be negative 4. And so you'll notice that they were both negative, and our answer was also negative. So now we actually have some rules for adding integers. Because let's face it, if we're using numbers that are bigger than 10, we're really not going to want to use a number line to figure them out. So here are the actual rules for adding integers. If your signs are the same, meaning you have 2 negatives, you have 2 positives that you're adding, you're going to add the absolute values of those numbers, and you're going to keep their sign. So here's our example, negative 6 plus negative 7. So when we say we're adding the absolute values, that just means forget about their signs. 6 and 7. 6 and 7 make 13. And we're going to keep the sign, because that's the last part of the rule, and keep the same sign. So it's a negative 13. That's easy enough. And of course, you've added positive numbers all the way through your career here. So a positive 6 plus a positive 7 would be a positive 13. You know that. Here's where it gets a little bit trickier. If the signs are different, meaning one of your numbers is negative, one of your numbers is positive, guess what? We don't add them at all. We're going to take their absolute values. Remember, again, that means you just forget about their sign for a minute. We're going to subtract them. And then we're going to use the sign of whichever add-in had the higher absolute value, and that sign will go to our answer. So let's look at an example. Negative 9 plus 4. So we're going to forget the negative, forget the signs. We have a 9 and a 4. We're going to subtract them. We get 5. Now, 9, the negative 9, is farther from 0. It has the bigger absolute value. So since it's negative, our answer will be negative. Now let's look at this one. Negative 2 plus 8. So we're going to forget the negative on the 2. We're just going to take a 2 and an 8. If we take 8 minus 2, we get 6. 8 is the number that's farther from 0. So, and since it's positive, our answer will be positive. Another way to look at this is imagine that you are playing a game on a game board. If you have positive numbers, you're moving forward along the game board. If you have negative numbers, you're moving backward. Remember that we learned that it doesn't matter the order of our addends when we are adding. We learned about the commutative property of addition. So let's say that I have a negative 2 plus 8. It's the same as 8 plus negative 2. So if I move forward 8 times on my game board, and then I have a negative 2, that means I'm going to go backwards 2. See, that's why I land on 6. Hopefully that makes sense. And here's our last fact for today. When we are using numbers that are opposites, that's called the additive inverse. That's one of your vocabulary. So a 3 and a negative 3 are opposites, just like a 10 and a negative 10, or a 5 and a negative 5. When you are adding opposites, you'll always get 0. That's what the additive inverse means. All right, time to practice some adding integers. We'll do subtracting another day.